That was difficult because I knew that it would have a serious effect on him. You know?
Of course, yeah. Now, Pat Rabbit was talking about being asleep and sleepless nights. Do you have sleepless nights now?
On occasion, but can I just say on that other point, I forgot to mention, the fact of the matter is, on that night, all of the members were at home. The only people that were in government buildings were the Taoiseach and the Minister for Finance and the bankers in question, and members, of course, of Department for Finance. The arrangements had been made the previous Sunday, right? And we had gone into that in quite a bit of detail and said, yes, this was the expert advice to go down the guarantee route.
When was that decision made?
That was on the day before. You know, essentially, it was the Sunday we had a cabinet meeting, and we'd gone through it in quite a bit of detail, as I said. So, all of the cabinet ministers were at home. This was simply a courtesy call to me, because what's required under those situations is that you have what's known as an incorporeal meeting, and that it's done by telephone. So again, there's a great deal of hyperbole, a lot of exaggeration, and that's part and parcel of what oppositions do.
Yeah, but can I just ask you a question? Well, I think the rest of us thought that the two Brians, that the decision was made that night.
Well, no, I mean, of course, you couldn't just make a decision on the spur of the moment. You've had to discuss it for days in advance. Of course not. No, you just can't do it like that. Everybody had to be involved in what is the best thing to do under these circumstances. So, no, that's incorrect. It wasn't a spur of the moment decision.
Well, I'm not suggesting it was a spur of the moment, but I thought it was a burning the midnight oil decision.
Oh, well, look, the actual details perhaps, but the broad thrust of what had been agreed had actually been discussed, as I said, in detail on that Sunday. Yeah.
And did you, or did any of your party have the prescience or the thinking right through what this was going to do of nailing the sovereign to the banking difficulty, as it's called now?
Well, again, I think but you have to look at, Marian, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but you have to look at what Patrick Honohan has said. Again, someone who was brought in, who has been quite an independent voice, the first outsider to be appointed to that position. He did his report. It was, again, a very thorough report. And he said very clearly in that report that while the bank guarantee may have been too broad in that it included subordinated debt, that it was absolutely essential because of the systemic importance of some of those banks. And we do know as well that the ECB didn't want a bank failure in this country. Those are the issues. We took that advice, and you can only go with the best advice at the time.
Well, you see, I think that's a very interesting point, that you can only go with the best advice at the time, because the advice comes to you through the civil service.
Correct.
When you ask the civil service, they say the decision is the government's, and they don't really clarify what their advice was in that sense, and that there is no responsibility to so do. So it means that ministers, and I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about all ministers, can get off absolutely free as a breeze by saying I operated on the best advice, and the civil servants aren't answerable at all in that they can say this is a government decision.
Well, not correct really, Marian, because ultimately the buck stops with the politicians, with the ministers, because we are accountable. We do have to go before the electorate and do that famous job interview with 65,000 people. That's the ultimate accountability. So,
but you really couldn't make a decision like that. Nobody in that cabinet has the expertise, nor presumably the desire, to make such an absolutely unbelievable decision with such consequences. So you have to do what the civil servants advise you to do.
You have to weigh up the options, and you have to weigh up the best possible advice. You get your reports in, and you make your decision on that basis. I mean, I did look at the idea of nationalisation. I felt that was perhaps the best way forward. But again, I would have to put it to you that if we had gone down the nationalisation route, you were nationalising a basket case, and in any,
we've done it.
Yeah, we have.
You were
exactly.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
if we'd done it more quickly, it might have been better.
Well, would it have been better? Because look, let's be honest. Look at the crisis as it now has started. Across Europe, we have other countries like Portugal.
Yeah, but Northern Rock not nationalised, and the Sun stayed steady enough in the firmament.
Fine, but I mean, I think we're beginning to realise that the basis of this crisis is actually in the Eurozone. We have a problem that cheap money was made available, and the interest rate that was set by the ECB was very low. It was more appropriate, I think, for the German market, not our own, and our economy just overheated. And let's be honest as well, mistakes were made in this country, big mistakes in relation to the property